It was a nice little community, and we had a lot of friends. And
Them interrogate Daniel Wells.
You know about DNA?
Yeah. I'm a monster.
And this is the moment where things are coming to, ahead.
Dan,
Yeah.
telling you were there.
What happened? When Tanya Etheridge McKinley, then 23, was slayed in the early hours of January 1, 1985, in Pensacola, her son, who was 18 months old, was waiting for her at home. She was last observed alive at Daryl's Bar and Grill in Pensacola at 1:30 a.m.
it was a nice little community, and we had a lot of friends. And
A blue towel that was next to her body that appeared to have blood on it. Positive for the presence of semen, would have had cuttings taken.
Cut to chase. So that young lady I just showed you a picture of.
Right.
New Year's Eve, 1984, going.
Her body was discovered early on New Year's Day in an empty lot near the intersection of Peacock Drive and Creighton Road, only 1 block off Scenic Highway. She was physically attacked, strangled to demise, and only partially nude. 35 years later, on Wednesday, Daniel Leonard Wells, 57, was taken into custody by Pensacola police and charged with first-degree slay and first-degree physical battery. Wells was identified when an open-source genealogy database was used to analyze a DNA sample taken from the crime scene by Parabon Nanolabs, a Virginia-based company that collaborates with the Pensacola Police Department and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. The results of this process revealed the identities of multiple individuals who were thought to be the suspect's distant cousins. Starting with the distant cousins, Pensacola Police, FDLE, and Parabon then created a family tree that ultimately helped them identify Wells as a suspect. His DNA was then secretly collected by police surveillance teams from a discarded cigarette, and it was compared to DNA discovered at the crime scene.
I think you can hear my voice crack because I think it all caught up to me.
Them interrogate Daniel Wells.
You know about DNA?
Yeah. And I committed homicide.
PPD Captain Chuck Millett, the investigation's lead detective, said, "This was a case that spanned 3 generations of detectives. I know it took a long time, but it was one of those cases we never gave up on." The arrest report states that the likelihood of the DNA from the crime site matching someone other than Wells is greater than 1 in 700 billion. It is the first cold case arrest in Pensacola history and the first case in Northwest Florida to be solved using the familial DNA method. In April 2018, Californian detectives identified and apprehended Joseph James D'Angelo, a suspect in the Golden State Slayer crimes, using a similar technique. Using this technique, Orlando police identified Benjamin Holmes as a suspect in the 2001 demise of Christine Frank and took him into custody for first-degree slay in November 2018.
Was sent to the FBI and all you could tell at that time was ABO blood group.
And so the 2 investigators that were dressed up as patrol officers,
It just
Wells is being held at the Escambia County Jail without being given a bond. He is scheduled to appear in court on Thursday morning. Wells was charged with battery and witness tampering when he was detained in Pensacola in 1987, according to court documents. However, when he entered a plea of not guilty to the battery allegation, the witness tampering charge was dismissed. He was detained in 1988 in Pensacola, Florida, on accusations of soliciting prostitution. The verdict in that case was not disclosed in the court files. Tanya's body was discovered on New Year's Day just before 5 in the morning by a Peacock Drive family who were bringing their ailing dog to a 24-hour vet clinic. Semen, pubic hair, and head hair were gathered by investigators from Tanya's body and the crime scene. All of the evidence was eventually determined to be from the same individual years later, thanks to developments in DNA testing, but no matches were ever discovered in the national DNA database. Since 2012, Renee Etheridge, Tanya's older sister, has managed the Tanya Etheridge McKinley Memorial page on Facebook in an effort to maintain public awareness of her sister's case. In an interview with WKRG in 2008, Renee stated, "Tanya would fight hard for me. She would fight for me, and I've got to fight for her."
The thing that struck me was when he got out of his truck, when Daniel Wells did, well, he's 6'7".
Anybody and their relatives who have put their DNA into these genetic genealogy websites,
A monster.
And this is the moment where things are coming to, a head.
My husband said, we need to go. The daycare closed at 1 a.m. And she said,
People who are aware of what transpired exist, I have no doubt about it. Joe, the father of Tanya and Renee, passed away in April 2000. Laverne, their mother, resides in Jay with Renee. Renee exclaimed, "Tanya can rest now." Upon learning of Wells' detention, she can finally rest. According to Renee, Tanya was attempting to improve her life at the time of her demise and was a huge fan of Rod Stewart and Kiss. Renee stated that Tanya's greatest love was for her then 18-month-old son, Timothy Davis Jr., who was lovingly referred to as Timbo by family members when he was younger. Following the arrest, Davidson remarked, "My mom, she never got to raise me, never got to be a part of my life. For the previous 35 years, Wells was able to live his life, and he became a father. After all those years of being out there and knowing what he did, he finally got to spend time with his kids. He was intending to keep it a secret from everyone and was bringing it around with him. He would never have spoken what he said on his own. Nothing could ever make up for losing my mom, but at least now we know what happened to her." The justice came. Tanya Etheridge McKinley's family waited tensely for 35 years for the authorities to find the man who slayed the outgoing 23-year-old and dumped her body beside a Florida highway. That day finally came on Wednesday night with the apprehension of Daniel Leonard Wells, 57, who was connected to the 1985 slay of the young lady by DNA found in the butt of his cigarette. The oldest unsolved case in Pensacola history is about to come to a conclusion with his arrest. Renee Etheridge, her older sister, told the Daily Beast that her sister was the best sister a girl could ask for. "God is wonderful. It's unbelievable that today has finally come." According to the Pensacola Police Department, Wells was charged on Wednesday night with first-degree slay and first-degree physical battery in connection with the demise of McKinley on January 1, 1985. At the moment, he's being held at the Escambia County Jail without bond. Semen and hair were among the tangible evidence that investigators took from the scene and McKinley's body, but they were never able to pin down a suspect or make any arrests in the case.
Very, very cheated. How different would my life be?
Dan,
Yeah.
telling you, you're there. Well, we're gonna end up in the same place. Because we're not here.
Additionally, they were unable to match DNA samples from a national database with that collected at the site. The Pensacola Police Department released an emotional statement on Facebook on Thursday saying, "Over time, the trail went cold despite having a good bit of physical evidence and dozens of interviews. In the interim, a slayer was at large, parents buried their daughter without realizing the consequences, and a baby boy grew up without a mother." Although McKinley's case became cold, Pensacola police were unwavering in their resolve to find her perpetrator, and over the course of the previous 30 years, the file was turned over to other detectives. Every few years, it seems like a fresh lead materializes, and we have to drop everything to pursue it. We repeated this repeatedly, the department stated in a statement. Tanya's case was repeatedly handed down to the following generation after detectives retired. Technology advancements pushed the case back to the fore. With new eyes on all the material, detectives presented fresh theories and rekindled hopes of apprehending Tanya's slayer.
Evil, dark secret that he had was just, I can't describe the emotion.
the transcribing classes where you would work for a doctor and transcribe.
Started receiving texts from our PIO.
In recent years, authorities have been comparing open-source genealogy databases which have gained popularity among families looking for long-lost relatives, with DNA profiles found at previous crime scenes. Authorities in Pensacola, Florida were able to match DNA evidence discovered close to McKinley's body with multiple individuals who were thought to be Wells's distant cousins by using a database. In order to identify potential culprits, investigators built a family tree after the strike, starting with the farthest relatives. The tree eventually helped them identify Wells as a suspect, according to the authorities. According to the Pensacola Police Department, after pursuing Wells, they were eventually able to correlate DNA from a cigarette butt he had thrown away with the evidence they had gathered 35 years prior. According to the department, today, the evil that took Tanya away from her friends and family was arrested for her brutal slay. It's possible that the questions of why this occurred and how evil came into Tanya's life will never be resolved, and that they won't matter in the end. What matters is that Tanya was not forgotten. The Pensacola News-Journal was able to collect court records indicating that Wells had prior encounters with Pensacola officials. Among these incidents was his arrest in 1987 on charges of violence and witness tampering. On the first accusation, he entered a plea of not guilty, and the second charge was later dropped.
About it, couldn't wait till her baby was born.
That you're there.
You're hanging on every word, and you're understanding that.
Street and was able to recover that cigarette butt.
And so we got back to the police station.
Wells was detained for allegedly soliciting prostitutes a year later, though it's unknown how the case turned out. McKinley's 35-year-old son, Timothy Davidson Jr., expressed his gratitude for the arrest to the Daily Beast, but said that he won't feel completed until there is a conviction and justice has been served. Davidson Jr. remarked, "It's still kind of unbelievable, like I'm dreaming, and that his mother can finally rest in peace." That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.